Hello and welcome to yesterday's airlines. It is nearly the end of February and it is almost time for the Amsterdam Aviation Fair, which I will be flying off to tomorrow. But before I go, it's still enough time to take a look at the NG Models February announcements, which have just been announced this week. Obviously, we're coming off the back of the Chinese New Year, so it's not surprising that this February announcement set from NG is smaller than they usually put out, and also probably not as diverse as they might put out. So there's some allowance, I think, for that. And it also comes off the back of an excellent January release set, from which I got quite a few of the models, and I'm planning on getting a few more. I got, for example, the Eastern TriStar, which is an awesome looking release. I also picked up the Condor Rizzybird 757 and the TWA LLC Interim MD80. All the three of those really, really nice. I've also got both of the Boeing House Colour 747 SPs, though I haven't got around to actually unboxing them yet. And I've got an order, one of the West Air A319s as well. And I'm still thinking of picking up a couple of the others too. So there's a good chance that I'll probably get at least 8 of that January set. Can't say the same for this February release set, which comes in at just over 20 models, 23 I think, but there's a lot of repetition here and a lot of variants of the same aircraft and airline combo. So let's get in and check out what NG is serving us up in this February set. Before I do that, obviously, please chuck a like on the video and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're one of those people who hasn't so far. Really appreciate that. The channel's growing well and I put out this sort of content pretty regularly, but not just ranking videos. Also, obviously, I do videos to looking at molds, looking at new releases, and my model airport as well. So plenty of content on the channel here and also on my other channels on Instagram at Yesterday Airlines, Facebook, and of course yesterdaysairlines.com, where every week I do one model review and I put a lot of time into other 400 scale related content like aviation history, like detailed mold reviews and rankings and that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's enough of that. Let's get on and check out this February set from NG. Okay, so NG continue to produce minor variant differences of the same aircraft airline combo, which, depending on whether you collect that airline aircraft combo, can be really cool or can be super annoying. And this month is a great illustration of both aspects of that for me. A lot of the set, as I said, is that sort of thing. If you wanted to just show the in completely separate airline aircraft combos in the set, there'd be a lot less than 23 models. There'd be probably half as many, maybe less. Anyway, we're going to start as always with the Airbuses, and the first pair up are A318s. They're business jets, and they show very much this aspect of NG's release set, because last month they announced one of these China Sonangol ACJ318s, and this month they've got another pair, exactly the same aircraft, just in different variants of the scheme. First one up, in fact, is so similar that the only difference that I can see seems to be the writing that's behind the Air China logo. I can't see any other difference between it. I was actually going to get the original one of these, but now I'm seeing these new releases. I'm tending towards the second one, 48015, which has a much more complete scheme. It's got actually the China Sonangol logo on the tail. So that one, I think, is the of the three that are going to be available, which is a bit excessive, is the one that I think I'm going to aim for. And as such, I'm going to put the one which looks basically the same as last month's release into Workhorse. I put the other one up into iFly because that one is now the one I think I'll get, and that one at least has a complete livery with the logo on the tail. Now, the next models in the list is a series of Japan Airlines A350s. And JAL A350s, I presume they sell pretty well. And with these 4 additions, that makes 10 that have been produced by NG models, which is quite impressive considering the JAL scheme, as I've said many times, is one of the worst liveries that's out there today. It's just got the crane and Japan Airlines in black text written on the entire aircraft. It's like that's all there is. It's like it's worse than China Eastern scheme, because I don't think the Japan Airlines styles look even very good. Anyway, that's a personal prejudice of mine, so it doesn't necessarily say too much about the models here. But as you would expect, these models are not exactly unique. There have been a lot of Japan Airlines A350s made already by most of the major brands, JC Wings, Aviation 400, Phoenix, and even for the JAL collection by D'Agostini. So NG are far and away not the first to get these A350s to market. What we have here is we've got a one-wheeled version, JA 15XJ, and they've already made that exact reg previously. They made it in April 22. And then we've got three variants, JA01, 2 and 3 XJ, with the big coloured Airbus A350 titles on the rear fuselage. They're in red, silver and green respectively. And again, these have been made before. There is nothing to see here other than that the NG A350 is excellent, and these will probably be slightly nicer than the ones that have been made already. And if you're a JAL collector, I probably think about upgrading, but I'm not. I don't like livery. I'm not. I'm going to put these into workhorse. None of these are exciting me in the slightest. We also have a trio of JAL A350 1000s. So that's a lot of JAL this month. And it's a similar kind of story here with the A350 1000s. So we have JA03 Whiskey Juliet, and this one's just in the standard colours, and they've made previously JA01 Whiskey Juliet in that scheme in 2023, so that one's just a re-release, and again it's been made by JC AV400 Phoenix. And the other pair are JA01 Whiskey Juliet and JA02 Whiskey Juliet, but with big red A350 1000 titles on the back end. Now these have been made by JC Wings. I'm not sure if they've been made by anyone else. So there's a chink of more interest here. These ones are less common, and anyway, I'm just going to put two of them into workhorse, and I'll put one of those big A350 1000 title ones up into high flyer. I think in this case, it's fairly generous, but it is a good mold. It hasn't been made that much. I think it's just those JC Wings versions, which do look okay actually, but these ones will be slightly better. Okay, so that's a good chunk of the releases out of the way already, because as I said, really you've just got three different types of aircraft so far. China Sun Go A318, Japan Airlines A350-900, and Japan Airlines A350-1000. It's just that they actually take up 9 models to get those three variants. Now what we're going to have are a series of A350 freighters. Obviously last month in January, NG debuted their new A350 freighter mould. It was a model I was really tempted to get. I may still, but it's not high on my list. Did like the look of it though, and they produced the prototype. They also produced, I think it was Starlux, maybe, a fantasy version. And this month we've got a load more fantasy versions. We've got 5 of them, in fact. Now, these are kind of half fantasies. Obviously, the A350 freighter hasn't flown yet, as far as I'm aware. And in fact, looking at reports this morning, it looks like Airbus are going to delay the entire type by at least a year, which may well have an impact on the 60 or so orders that have come in for it from airlines like Cathay? It's not a woman. Cathay Cargo, Singapore Airlines, Etihad, Air France, CMA. And those are 5 of the releases that we have this month from NG. Now, NG isn't pretending to give them registrations, which is kind of like, so that kind of, I almost think if you're going to produce a fantasy, you might as well give it a reg. Even if you don't know what it's going to be in real life, it kind of looks weird without one. But anyway, NG here have decided to produce these 5 and not give them registrations. So we've got Cathay Cargo, Singapore, Etihad, Air France, CMA. I don't particularly like this, and I'm not overly fond of the concept of producing models that are on order without knowing what the actual registration is going to be, or indeed the final livery. And I think it's a little cheeky, and surely they're just going to re-release them in the future when they do get delivered with the registrations on. They seem just a bit pointless, and these 5 A350s could be TriStars or MD-80s, and they'd be much better for it. So, yeah, not loving this concept of producing kind of, I don't know, it's almost like you're producing pre-order models, but actually producing them, but effectively, before the aircraft even exists. It's kind of silly. Don't really like it that much. I think the models look pretty cool, but they're just complete fantasies, and that's a bit pointless. I'd much rather they just waited until the A350 freighter was in service. So, yeah, I don't know if these will sell well or not. What are your opinions on this? NG are doing this quite a bit at the moment, and I'm not sure I like it, but do you guys think it's a good idea? Are you interested in buying these, even though they don't have registrations on them? Yeah, don't know, for me. They don't really hit the mark. I'm going to put all of them in Workhorse, to be honest. Just the concept of doing this doesn't really sit too right with me. Next up, we've got a quartet of Air China 777-300ERs. NG has been gradually moving through the wide body A350, 787 and 777 schemes for the major Chinese airlines, which is not exactly a big surprise. And we're basically up to, it's done the majority of them, but now we've still got a few left. So this month we've got a couple of Smiling China releases. SB2035. One is an Ultimate Collection model. It's the only one this month. I've already got a really nice JC Wings example of this that was made in 2017. I'm not looking to replace it. This isn't going to be better, I would argue, than that one. So I like the one I've got. But at the same time, I completely understand why they're producing this, and it doesn't bother me. And in fact, I'm going to put one of these in the High Flyer. I think I'll put the other one into Workhorse. I like these China special schemes. I obviously collect China Airlines or Chinese Airlines, and I understand why they're doing this, and I think it makes sense. So it doesn't bother me. Next up, we've got a couple of Air China standard liveries. And actually, when you look back through all the Air China 777s that have been made, and there have been over 35 of them, very few of them are actually come in the standard schemes. In fact, there's been at least 3, I think, from Aviation 400, one of which, again, I own. And there's been at least one for Phoenix made with the end of last year. I think it was around August sort of time. So there's not been that many, actually, which is a bit of a surprise. Here we've got B2036 in the standard scheme, but we've also got B2085 in the standard scheme, but with a special sticker on the back end in Chinese. And I googled what this means, and apparently it means Dream Chaser, and it was put on the first 777-300 that was delivered to Air China. So I don't think it was on there for very long, but it was on the first one that was delivered. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool. It's not a dramatic difference, let's be honest. It's pretty small, but I quite like it. It's almost tempting me to get that one, to be honest. It's a small difference, but this is it. See, and this is what I mean. If you collect Air China, as I do, then these small differences are quite cool. But if you don't collect Air China, you're like, why the hell are they making 4 Air China 777s this month? So it's very much swings and roundabouts. I think it can work both ways. I try not to get annoyed when I see lots of Japan Airlines A350s, for example, because there's surely some people out there who are excited by that, who collect JAL. And in this case, even though this is a small difference, and one that I didn't know existed actually before they produced the model, I quite like the look of this little Dream Chaser bit on the back of the aircraft, and I might very well get this. So I'm going to put the standard colours one into Workhorse, and I'll put this other one with the Dream Chaser script on the rear fuselage into High Flyer. Okay, and that leaves us just with 5 models to discuss. So this is a super quick vid in comparison to my usual NG ones. And again, here we've got some repetition, but these 5 are all at least MD-80s, and that is quite cool. First one up is probably the model of the month. It is an Iberia MD-88 ECFOZ. Now, I love this Iberia livery, and it's so much better than the Iberia scheme that they have at the moment. And I love MD-80s too. So this is a clear, cool aircraft for me to buy. My only issue with this release is that Iberia really wasn't an important operator of stretch MD-80s. They only picked up any long MD-80s when they merged with Aviarco, who'd been a long time operator. They did operate a lot of MD-87s, 24 in fact, probably the biggest operator in the world, but they didn't operate many standard length MD-80s, and they only picked these up like in 1999. So it's a little bit annoying that they've made an MD-88, which they did operate for 10 years or so after they picked it up, but these are really late operation MD-80s, and they're not the core fleet, which was mainly made up of MD-87s, which were delivered much, much earlier in the early 90s. So it just kind of, it's not the best choice is what I'm trying to say for an MD-80 release when we're not getting very many. This would be much better served if it had been Austrian, Alitalia, SAS, Finnair, core MD-80 operators. Iberia, in my mind, was not a core operator of a stretch of the standard length MD-80. It was a core operator of the MD-87. So I'm still going to put this in supersonic, don't get me wrong. Still a lovely model, but I'd much rather have seen any of those other operators, Swissair, Austrian, those sort of operators, than Iberia. I don't think it's a core MD-88 operator. Anyway, still supersonic. Next up, we've got a couple of American MD-80s, and yeah, much like with the Echanas and the JALs that I've already talked about, these are just variant releases, and this makes it 5 American MD-80s that have been released. Now these two are slightly different to the previous releases, but only marginally. First, we've got N923TW, and this one has got the pointy tail, so it's very, very similar to N589AA they released in mid last year. The difference here, primarily between the two, is that this one doesn't have the Super 80 titles on the front, so it's quite a late variant of the MD-80 scheme with American, but it's a very small difference. The other one is much more different, N214AA. This one has the older style scheme. It's got the black nose cone, which immediately makes it look more retro, but oddly it's also got the screwdriver tail, so it's that combo of old and newer form with an MD-80. It's also got working together titles on it. This is the first time they've released an American MD-80 with the black nose cone tip, which does change the look of the aircraft quite a bit. I may very well get this one. I think this is pretty cool. But to be fair, these are the 4th and 5th American Airlines MD-80 variants, and none of the 5 that have been released so far are the delivery scheme, which is the one that I probably want the most. Full metal tail, black nose cone, pointy tail cone. So hopefully they'll carry on releasing a few more of these, but again, I can see people probably running out of patience with the number of variants they're producing. I'll put these up, I think. Do I want to put both these in the high flyer? Yeah, I probably will. Or maybe I should put one of them down. I'll put one of them to workhorse, actually, thinking about it. I'll put the working together one into high flyer, and I think I probably will get that one. And we finish off this video and this month's NG announcements with another couple of re-releases, effectively, or re-regs. They're both SAS Scandinavian MD-87s. We already had the first MD-87 release in January. That was SEDIC. Here we've got LNRMU and OYKHF, so we've got Danish and Norwegian versions of the SAS MD-87 when we had the Swedish version in January. So for me, it's still the wrong livery. It's still the later scheme and not the delivery colours, which is one I would be really keen to get. And I did resist buying the first one. I will resist buying this pair as well. Again, if you're a Scandinavian collector or you particularly collect Norwegian or Danish aircraft, then these are going to be pretty useful for you. For the majority of people, I think they'll just say these are basically re-releases. I'll put them both into Workhorse. Again, it's a simple change, and I can understand why they do it. And it doesn't offend me. But they're not the MD-87s I'm looking for. Okay, so that is the roundup of this month's set. I very much see this as a coming off the back of Chinese New Year set, and I'm more accepting of the repetitive nature of the subject matter here. They could just release 10 models, and like Gemini do, and you'd get 10 models, but instead they've released 20, and most of them are variants of each other. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't cause you any harm. It is a little frustrating maybe that they're not releasing a wider range, and you might want 20 completely independent models, but they obviously can't do that this month at least, and I can understand that. I'm not a big fan of the A350 freighters in the sense that they're fantasies. I'm not a big fan of most of this set, to be fair, but it doesn't offend me, and I'm sure there are people out there who are really keen on those JAL A350s, and yeah, good for them. You know, good for them this month. That's fine. But for me, the best models clearly are the Iberia MD-88 and probably the Air China 777s and the American MD-8s. They're the ones that I like the most, and I'm glad that they've produced the third of those China Sonangols. I've cancelled my order for the first one. I'll just get the one with a nice tail. So there's still stuff here which I like the look of. Okay guys, well that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. As I said, I'm off to Amsterdam tomorrow for the aviation fair. Hopefully that'll be a lot of fun, and I'll meet collectors there, people that subscribe to the video maybe. But I know I'll meet a couple of my chums there, and it'll be a good time, and hopefully there'll be some cool models that I can pick up as well. But until the next video, that's it from me. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.